Hello and welcome to a DFS review for the 2020 Workday Charity Open. This is SweetSpotDFS, and in these review videos, what I like to cover are all of the stats leading into the tournament. Try to find some commonality or some, dare I say, predictor of stats for these top 10 golfers. I want to see who finished inside the top 10 and how their results looked prior to. Whether that was course history, recent form, swing stats, as I like to call them. That's all your strokes gained metrics. Grass stats, Poa and bent we had, so I want to look at that. And I also want to look at the optimal lineup and compare it to the Millie Maker lineup, just to see how close it was and if, we had any flexibility of creating lineups somewhere in between. And that's about it for my review video. Before we get into the video, I like to remind you, like I do in all of my videos, you can watch us in a faster speed. If you're on desktop, go ahead, drag your mouse over the screen. You're going to find a gear icon somewhere down here. Drill down on that, you'll find playback speed. I prefer 1.5, but if you were to watch it in 2 times speed, you will cut this video in half. On mobile, you'll find that top right-hand corner, 3 dots that make a vertical line. Drill down on that, you'll find playback speed. I'll also have timestamps in the description, so you can find the most interesting or important thing that you find faster. So let's go ahead and get into the spreadsheet. I have the results page up right now. We'll talk about this very quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but Collin Morikawa beat Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas looked pretty darn good for his first 3 rounds. I mean, he was bogey-free first 3 rounds. Then the 4th round came about, and he was spraying the driver all over the place. Now, fast forward to the playoff, that kind of stuff sticks with you. I mean, pretty much any golfer, except for Danny Lee, and that's a joke that I've said in the past. But, okay, here's a joke. Danny Lee just does what his caddy tells him to do. That's it. But most golfers remember what happened within that day. If on the first hole you spray it right and you're like, man, I've been hitting the ball so well on the driving range, I had to come here and do that. That stuff sticks with you. Let's say hole 10, you did something, because that's a playoff hole these guys end up going to. That stuff will stick with you. And if you're having driving issues throughout the day like JT was having, that is going to stick with you. So regardless of how elite this golfer is, he's still a human being. He's still going to have those psychological issues that when it comes to winning a tournament, if you're beating someone who is just hot fire like Collin Morikawa, there's going to be some doubt that creeps in your head. And that's likely what happened with Justin Thomas. So unfortunate. I mean, I was pulling for JT. I really like JT. If there was a new elite golfer to take the mantle, I really don't mind JT. I think he is a great all-around player. When the putter is going, he's one of the best, one of the top 3. But the driver wasn't really helping him out today. He couldn't get into scoring positions. He did get an eagle, a clutch eagle on hole 15, sorry. But yeah, when it came to the playoff, Morikawa, who was just he was money throughout the entire day, and that's kind of who he is, right? He hits all of his green and regs and not that too far off, like he's a ball striking machine. So it's a good win by Morikawa. This is a true field. The other one he had earlier in the year, I believe, or it was sometime last year, I can't remember, but it was one of those alternate event. It wasn't even an alternate event. It was like the Sanderson Farms Championship or something like that. I'd have to remember, but it was so Puerto Rico Open was won by Victor Hovland. Yeah, I think it was one of those alternate events. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head. Barracuda, maybe. I'm not sure. But this is a true win, quote unquote true win for Collin Morikawa. So that was great. Victor Hovland, he was just looking hot fire throughout. I mean, this is like 4 weeks in a row where he's just played really good golf. Good to see Woodland up there. Cantlay and Schauffele were in my lineup construction video. I was really high on Cantlay, so was everyone else. Cantlay that I saw throughout the week he was hitting his irons too far. So his approach shots, all of them were going over the green, and they were all like on target. If he had just the right distance, he would have he would have been stuffing those irons. So I like him for next week, Cantlay for sure. I was really on Horschel on round 4 showdowns, primarily because of the bucket system. In all reality, he just was one of those golfers that were like 16th place. I can't remember what place he was coming into it, but it's like, yeah, he's probably primed. And I think he started on hole 10, which was one of those, what we found out throughout the week, one of the better starting holes. Actually, not one of, it was the best starting hole. And they got to start in the morning, so that even added more to it. And yeah, I'm not going to really talk about Jason Day, I guess. It was nice seeing him inside the top 10. I was not really high on him this week, but that might give me a little confidence playing him next week. Probably not, but maybe. Okay, so that's all I'm going to talk about results. I'm going to go right into the 2020 recent form tab. We're not going to talk about recent form here, but you can see how great some of these golfers had, what their recent form was. We'll talk about it in the 2020 DK page. But here, what I like to do is review the optimal lineup versus the Millie Maker winning lineup. The Millie Maker winning lineup, you'll see that in blue. That would be Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Ian Poulter, Jason Day, Charlie Hoffman, and Rory Sabatini. Funny, I played Hoffman. I played him in my lone Millie Maker lineup. So I don't know why. Like, I randomized all my lineups, but the fact he was there and he did well was awesome. I think I had 2 golfers miss the cut, Maverick McNeely and Benny Ann. So unfortunately, it didn't do well at all. But to have Hoffman up there, I also had I had Patrick Cantlay on that team and Xander. So I basically chose my best lineup that I thought, although I like to randomize it. I was looking for a Cantlay Schauffele lineup. I didn't care who else came with it. Once I was randomizing all of my lineups, I finally got to that one, and I'm like, okay, we're dealing with it. So anyways, interesting to see it in the Millie Maker. I'm not sure if that guy also randomly chose him, but still, great choice to have Charlie Hoffman there. So the Millie Maker winning lineup had 652.5 points. The optimal lineup had 681. And in the optimal lineup, it would have been Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, Chase Seifert, Charlie Hoffman, and Sam Ryder. Which is really interesting because that is a Stars and Scrub lineup. I really didn't think about playing a Stars and Scrub lineup, but I have to look at that going forward because so far my process, what it does is I will choose basically 2 golfers from 10K or from 9K and above, and then 2 golfers between 7 and 9K and 2 golfers underneath, which wouldn't have been terrible, but I wouldn't have won anything. Like I probably could have went Morikawa, Thomas, Woodland, Poulter, and then jumped down to, I guess, Chase Seifert and Charlie Hoffman. 49,200. So yeah, that could have been done, and that would have been my 2-2-2-2. Would that have won the Millie Maker? $665.5. Yes, it would have. So I guess that's not a bad process still. It's not the optimal lineup, and I'm always searching for the optimal lineup. So I'm not sure. Whatever. So that was one lineup that would have beat the Millie Maker lineup. But yeah, the Stars and Scrubs approach would have been pretty good if you would have gotten on the right guys. Yeah, that's all I have to talk about with the recent form. Let's go ahead and jump right into the 2020 DK page, which will have everything on it. Starting times, course history, recent form, and we'll just start from left to right. So we can look at the starting hole and see if any of these guys were paired together. Now, the nice thing that I did, instead of seeing all this crowded, busy work, I did put the games over here. I numbered them based off of basically earliest to latest tee time, and then starting on hole 1. So obviously hole 1 earliest tee time would be game 1. The second tee time would be game 2, or I mean not second tee time. The tee time on hole 10, the earliest tee time on hole 10 would be game 2, and so forth and so on. So anyways, you can see we have basically 3 sets of 2 that were paired together: Justin Thomas and Jason Day. So if you use that as a stack option, great stack option. Obviously, Jason Day ended up in the Millie Maker lineup. Also, Russell Henley and Sam Burns. Sam Burns would have been a good choice. Like, he scored quite a bit of points. If you would have had those 4 together, I think that was doable because that's a pretty decent price. So JT, let's see, who was it? Jason Day. So right there, we would leave ourselves with $17,000 left on the table, which obviously 8.5, we can easily do that, right? And we could go, oh shoot, I wanted to go Victor Hovland, Gary Woodland, but that is not doable by $800. That'd have been great. But let's say we needed Morikawa, obviously. 34, do we have another 34 up here anywhere? Nope. But say we got Morikawa. Now we have $7,800 to choose from. Maybe that gets us to Ian Poulter. And those points would have looked like 637.5. That would not have won you a Millie Maker lineup. So it wouldn't have worked out. But hey, not a bad way to try to create lineups, honestly, if you were to go with like a stack like that. And I typically like to use stacks on maybe 10% of my lineups, like tee time stacks. I don't really go full in on it. So that was your tee time recap. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to really talk about ownership, honestly. I'm not huge. I don't care about ownership. The optimal lineup doesn't care about ownership, and that's all I care about trying to find is ownership. So I'm not going to talk about it. You can look at the odds: 35-1. Colin Morikawa. You know, I haven't yet bet on anything, so I don't really go into odds all that much. We're not going to talk about fantasy points per game or value. What I will say this: if you think any of this is important, please pause the video, screenshot it for your own personal use, and then yeah, I'm going to keep going on. Okay, well, let's throw a filter on this actually, and redo this by result. Do we have everyone? No, we got to get back the missed cuts. Yeah, you can see a little bit more of the information. So I like to add, round 1, round 2, round 3. I was looking at starting holes on round 4 because some of them were playing hole 10, and obviously starting on hole 10, and starting on hole 10 was more of an advantage. So I was looking at all that information, but I had to clear out the rest of my filters so we can look at everybody. Is this everybody? It is. Okay. Course history. Your top guys in course history. Now, in the beginning of... Actually, let's go back. I'm sorry. There's something... All right, we're going to look at the top 20 stats because this is going to include everything we're going to talk about. Top 20 stats. This is how many times these golfers finished inside the top 20. And you're going to see this throughout the spreadsheet. This dark green color means they were top 20 in that stat. So as we look at the result, you're going to see a lot of dark green for a lot of these golfers. We have 5 golfers inside the top 10 who are inside the top 20 of recent form for this field. Now, only 2 guys with course history. We'll see how everyone else fared. But I went and tallied every single time a golfer finished inside the top 20 for a certain stat. I just tallied it up. So Colin Morikawa was top 20 in 5 stats. That's how that reads. Justin Thomas in 8 stats. Victor Hovland in 7. Really only Chase Seifert and Sam Ryder, the 2 only golfers that weren't top 20 in any stat. So really, if you were to look at golfers that weren't top 20 in any stat, like we got a bunch of top 20s here. We have exactly 6. But then as we go down, Ricky Fowler was not. Like, that was interesting. But yeah, you keep scrolling down, and you can basically remove. I'm going to keep these guys up here. Doesn't matter. They're all cheap prices. But if I were to scroll down from Ricky Fowler down to Matt Every, 54 golfers you wouldn't want on your lineup. 6 out of 60 you would. So that is an interesting percentage. Basically 60 golfers you could almost cross off. Now obviously you want Chase Seifert and Sam Ryder, but it's not bad, you know, thinking about how many golfers you can just scratch off. Of all the golfers that had 1, so there were 41 golfers that were in the top 20 of a particular stat once. 3 out of 41 made it inside the top 20. So you could even cut out ones. I mean, we're starting to run out of players, but if we look at 2s, we got 4 golfers out of 25. Now our percentages are getting better. For 3s, we have 2 golfers out of 9. Again, a good percentage, maybe not the greatest, you know. Out of 4 golfers, nobody, and that's fine. 7 golfers. 5 top 20 stats. We have 2 out of 6. That's pretty good. And then, I mean, 6 and above, I guess, if you want to just lump all those guys together, since it's not a lot. We got a lot of golfers that finished inside the top 20. So anyways, go by result. Again, you see 1, 2 guys inside the top 10 that didn't have a top 20 stat. Okay, so what were the top 20 stats? I'm going to go in order. We're going to look at course history. Again, I suggest if you want, pause the video, screenshot it to look for this information. So, course history. I thought course history was going to be, well, having some course history was important, and having good course history I thought would be important. But having top 20 course history, not that big of a deal. 2 golfers out of 20, the top 20 here, found themselves in the top 20 for the tournament. And really, 2 golfers finished 7th, so that's top 10. The rest of them, not so good. So course history at the Memorial, well, Muirfield Village, I should say, not that important. How about recent form? Recent form, as we saw in the 2019 DK, mattered quite a bit. We can obviously see it matters here. So I would say going into Muirfield next week, we want to be looking at recent form. Again, you can see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and hide this information here. How about bent grass? Now, I did not include this on my top 20 stats, but when we look at the top bent grass golfers, obviously top 3 all finished inside the top 20, with JT obviously finishing 2nd. But you also have Morikawa and Woodland down here. So you could have easily started a lineup with these guys. Again, you would have to go stars and scrubs, but you certainly could have done that, and even Billy Horschel is there. So with those 4 golfers, you would have had 13,900 left. So obviously, you'd have to find someone from the 6K range and then someone from the 7K range to make a lineup work out. But it could have worked. You could have made it work out. So Bentgrass actually looked. Oh, I'm sorry. That's 2020 Bentgrass. Overall Bentgrass. Still, it applied. Jason Day, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, Justin Thomas. There we go. So that's overall probably better. You got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 7th. Obviously, you can make a lineup out of those guys. Yeah, you could. I wouldn't have included Jason Day. I would have included like Billy Horschel, which was $200 cheaper than Jason Day. If you can include Billy Horschel in a lineup, you can include Jason Day and go lower with another golfer. So it could have been doable. All right, so that was overall bent. Sorry for the little mix up, but obviously we looked at 2020 bent already. We're not going to look at that information anymore. How about Poa? Now Poa I included because my thoughts on Poa is that it's the invasive grass. You've heard me say this a bunch. It's the invasive grass. It's going to show up more. It's going to cause issues more often than, well, I mean, bent grass is perfect grass. If I made a golf course, it would always have bent grass greens. They grow straight up. You can maintain them. I mean, it takes a lot of water to maintain them, so a lot of money. But for the most part, when they're maintained, they're excellent and super receptive too. Like, you need to put a lot of water on them to save them. So anyways, I thought Poa was going to be more of something to look at. Let's see how that ended up. So this is top 20 overall Poa. Well, you have first, second, third, 7th, 14th. I don't really know how to make, how to look at this, because sure, when it comes to, like the top stats for Poa and Bent, I should have kept the Bent stats here. If I, sure, I'll open this back up and then hide this again. We'll start there and go to here. And no, go to here. Okay, so I don't really know what to make out of, obviously this is your result column over here. So if I look at Bent, do you look at the top guys and see that the top 3 didn't finish top 20? And instead, if you look at overall Bent, you'll see 4 guys inside. I mean, you 5 guys, or 6 out of 6 of the top guys, they finished inside. No one missed a cut there. So do we look at Poa more than we look at Bent? I don't know. It's interesting to see. Obviously, the top 20 in both, you had a good nuclei of golfers to choose from. I mean, you're going to see John Rahm in both of them also. So it would have been difficult to fall on the same golfers. But they were there. They were in there. And again, you can see all the dark green over here. So the top 20 Poa, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of the top 20 bent grass had top 20 Poa stats. So you, out of 14 golfers, you had to choose 4. Maybe if that's the pool, oh man, I'm probably going to create lineups like that for next week. Find these golfers. Probably just going to cross out Justin Thomas right away, and also Colin Morikawa, and probably just use the same information. So maybe someone like Brooks, maybe Rose does better. Who knows? Maybe Matsuyama and Rahm do better. That might be a good choice. Though maybe those are the 4 golfers we choose for next week's tournament. It's doable. How about 2020 Poa? Yeah. Not a first or a second up there, but we do have Victor Hovland. Still have Patrick Cantlay. Russell Henley shows up. Ches Reavie, Sam Burns, and Kevin Streelman. So all very interesting golfers to think about. Let's go ahead and look at all of the swing metrics, basically. I'm going to go and hide some of this information. We don't really talk about rounds or anything like that, so I'm not going to. But if we look at top 20 tee to green, first of all, got to mention the guy who doesn't have stats. Chase Seifert finished in the top 10. He didn't have enough starts on the PGA Tour to accumulate stats, so that's something to note. But of your top 20 tee to green, we had 6 golfers finish inside the top 20. We saw that last week, or in the preview video for like 2019. So tee to green was something we were looking at. I didn't spend too much time on it when I was creating lineups myself. Off the tee, I didn't really look at that. Approach is a big one that a lot of people were looking at, and rightfully so. We have 7 golfers inside the top 20 that were top 20 in approach stat in the field. And you have first, second, and third. You have first, second, third, 5th, 7th, 7th, 14th. So definitely approach was a huge stat to look at, and probably is going to be next week as well. Around the green, as you can see, not much. Putting, only 2 golfers. So again, not much. Green and reg percentage. You would think if you saw approach being a huge stat, green and reg would, but that's not always the case. I have a video I'm going to create for shots gained. I will explain what all that means. Basically, shots gained approach is it matters by how far away you are from the green and how close you can put it to the pin. So green and reg is just how often do you get on the green in regulation. So obviously par 4, that means your second shot's finding the green. You're having a birdie putt. So these golfers have more birdie putts than anyone else. But shots gained approach, if they're not the highest in shots gained approach, that means they're not sticking it close enough, or they're not having a very decent approach shot into the green, basically. But yeah, you don't see a lot of guys here top 20, except for Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas, Gary Woodland. But yeah, again, I accumulated all of these stats and just put like a little check mark or a little, tally mark over here. And each time these guys are in the top 20 for that stat, it goes up by 1. So obviously, we already looked at we're at green in reg, but you can see these guys continuously go up. So Bo Hoag was the only lone golfer. Oh, him and Aaron Wise, I'm sorry. Both of them lone golfers in green and reg who did not make the cut. I shouldn't say it that way, but you get the idea. Proximity, did that matter? No, didn't look like it. We had 3 golfers finish inside the top 20. Nothing that spectacular. How about birdie or better? It shows up. I mean, Morikawa, Hoffman, that would have been a good, sub 7K range or golfer to choose from. Woodland, Schauffele, Thomas, and Cantlay. Obviously, you just really wanted one guy of these top 4 up here. Justin Thomas, obviously, being that guy. And maybe you could find yourself on Hoffman and Morikawa. I found myself on McNeely a lot. I really liked McNeely. I also found myself on Cam Champ. Just didn't work out. So one thing I'm always interested in, I want to check out golfers inside the top 20. Obviously, we're missing Chase Seifert. But look at the top 20 and then also kind of look at some of these stats over here. Don't mind, I usually fill this in after the fact, ownership. But just look at, the top 20. How many of these golfers, finish top 20 in driving distance? Only 3. So driving distance, and this is in the field. This isn't just for PGA. So the dark green means they're top 20 in the field. So you can see which golfers those are. Didn't really make a difference. I mean, I don't think Gary Woodland was that. None of it really made a difference. So driving distance was certainly nothing to look at. But I'm also looking at driving distance just to see. It's more of a yardage thing. How many of these golfers, because it's really, to me, if you can hit your drive near 300 yards, that's huge. Being able to do that will make golf much easier for these pros. So how much does that resemble? I mean, like, look at the good drive percentage. That's actually a really good stat to look at. And do we look at driving distance to go with good drive? Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, Henley sacrifices distance for accuracy. Only Sam Ryder, Jason Day, Ian Poulter. That's about it. It's just those 3 golfers that found themselves inside the top 10 that you kind of scratch your head over. That their distance isn't that great and their good drive percentage isn't that good either. Now, we're looking at like minuscule differences, right? Hitting at 300.2 isn't much different than 302.7, right? Like we know that, right? It's not that big of a deal. And 307.5 versus 302, not a huge deal. An 85% good drive percentage, 85.9, obviously better than 85.6, but 85.9 over 80.7, or even 78.55. Now the percentages probably a little bit more to look at, like, that's probably a little more important. But for the most part, not really that big of a deal. I kind of want to figure out this. I want to figure out kind of a it's going to be like a model where I'm going to take driving distance and somehow pair it up with something to find true potential. I don't know if it's like the max drive that I want to find, because a lot of these guys, it's like hitting 3-wood off the tee sometimes. So I want to find like their max drive and then maybe do some comparison to driving distance and driving accuracy, something like that. Maybe that's all baked in the good drive percentage. I don't know. I have to figure it out, but I think there's something in here, because I hate picking golfers that don't do well. I should say this. I dislike picking golfers who have like very little potential. And I know that's on me. And I know it sounds weird to say, but like even a Jim Furyk, he was touted a lot for this tournament. I didn't play him a lot. But he, like I said, he was touted a lot. And when you look at like good drive percentage and driving accuracy, his 281 is a factor because he doesn't hit the ball far to begin with. So if 281 is his driving distance average, how far can he actually hit a ball? It doesn't. I mean, his swing doesn't look like he can actually smack a ball out there that far. So it would be really interesting to see, like Ches Reavie, out of these guys that have good driving accuracy but not distance, really falters. I mean, like none of these guys Hearn 281.6. I would rather not choose some of these golfers based off of their driving distance. There has to be some kind of threshold for like a Muirfield Village as opposed to like an RBC Heritage. Like if Hearn could do something decent at a RBC Heritage, but this driving distance is actually also affecting the rest of your clubs. If you can't hit the ball far, you're not going to hit any of your other clubs far. Or if you can't hit your driver far, you can't hit the rest of your clubs far. So it makes the game easier when you get your 9-iron 150 yards as opposed to 140 or 160 yards versus 140. That's something I want to look into. Bogey avoidance is really the only other stat I was looking at. And I don't think I included in the stats here, but it is interesting to look at. That would be the conclusion of the stats portion of it. So we looked all the way through grass stats to swing stats. Very interesting stuff. What I want to do next is actually open back up the rest of the golfers and talk about the bucket system. So what I did is, if you're with me in all my videos, I create a bucket system based off of last year's finishing position and last week's finishing position. And I basically look back the past 6 years, 7 years, and come up with these numbers. Now, 1 obviously means that's the best ranked. Again, dark green is a good color. These are the colors of the stoplight. So red, you would want to have caution, and then dark red, you just don't want to play, period. It's like a Matthew Fitzpatrick. But as you can see, a lot of 1s dominate the top 5. Maybe not so much top 10 in general, but then you see a lot of 2s. And like even a Chase Seifert was a 1-3. What I'll do from there is I create tiers based off of salary. So if we look at salary here, tier 1 for me were golfers that were 9,000 and above. So these golfers here. And based off of their buckets and their bucket combinations, so I include that right here, I create kind of a interest score. Like how interested am I, or out of 100 lineups, how much do I want to play them? So that's where I have this number over here. Now, obviously, tier 1 is small. It's going to have, if you use these percentages here, it's going to have larger numbers as compared to like tier 2. Now, look, I had 0 shares of Sungjae Im in this sweet spot percentage. He finished 63rd. Weird, right, guys? Why wasn't Sungjae a great play? Primarily because last year at the Memorial, didn't finish the greatest. And the week before, didn't have a finishing position that followed suit with the rest of the top 10 finishing positions over the last 5 years. Last 6 years, I should say. So that's why he'd be a 5-4. And if you're still confused by it, look at the preview video because I explained it there. But yeah, you see a lot of ones, a lot of twos. I shouldn't say a lot of ones and a lot of twos, but as we go down, so tier 2 would have been 8,900 to 7K. Now I'm still trying to figure out where these tiers really lie within and how much I should own one of the golfers. If I were to go by result and then go by salary, so if I filter this by condition, and we will go greater than or equal to value of 9,000. We have 5 golfers out of 10 that finish inside the top 15. That's pretty good. And really 4 out of 10 finish inside the top 10. So 40%, pretty darn good. Only 2 golfers missed the cut. So then if I were to go between, say, 8,900 and 7,000, we're going to have a couple more golfers. So now I have 9, but that's 9 out of 54. Can we do that calculation in our head really quickly? Can you guys? I'm not sure if I can do it quickly. So let's go ahead and look that up. So we have, what was that, 54. So it's 9 divided by 54. Gives us 16%. So not quite the same as the 40%, but still, if we just think of numbers alone, that's 9. 9 golfers finished inside the top 20 as opposed to 5. 5 is still good, right? So tier 1 still reigns supreme for tier 1. Let's go ahead and go less than or equal to 7,000. Or 6,900, I should say. And we have 7 golfers once again, but this is going to be out of a bigger number, out of 93. 7 out of 93. So if we go by tiers and we go 7 divided by 93, that's 7%. So 7% of golfers in tier 3 finish inside the top 10. Basically, that's how I look at it. And obviously 16% of tier 2 finished inside the top 10. But 40% of tier 1 finished inside the top 10. Or top 20. Sorry, top 20. All of those should have been top 20, not top 10. So it's really interesting because I want to determine, you know, how do I get on some of these golfers, right? How much should I really be digging down in the 7K range or less than 7K? Your cheapest guy that finished top 20, 6,300. Obviously 6,000. Chase Seifert, 6,000. You know, that's just numbers all over the place. So obviously not having, well, I guess you could have 2 guys at 6,900, and those coincidentally were golfers who had found themselves in the top 20 stats at least once. Really didn't look at that when I went in between. So let's go ahead and do that. I suppose I got a lot of 6,900. Yeah, that's too much. I gotta my bad. That includes the numbers. Okay. So yeah, of these guys, a lot of guys here that had top 20 stats in at least one category or more. Only Sepp Straka, that was the only golfer that did not. Obviously, we do have some still down here. I mean, we got a bunch. Only one other golfer didn't have top 20. That was Luke List. So very interesting to see that, obviously. And if we went and sorted this by how many a golfer particular had, remember Adam Hadwin actually was doing well at one point in time. Interesting that the sweet spot percentage said 0% of him. 6 lineups of Russell Henley. I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, it told me 8 lineups of Mark Leishman. That didn't work out. But, including some of those top tier guys, you couldn't have really put Mark Leishman on a lineup. It would have been really difficult. Benny Ann, 8 lineups. So anyways, looking at these top 20 stats, really didn't matter all that much. Like having a bunch of top 20 stats didn't matter at all. But using the bucket system would have helped you out a little bit more. 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. Obviously, Gary Woodland leads this one, and he was a 5. But, I mean, he didn't win the tournament. He still finished top 10, and he was only one golfer out of the whole slew that really was a last year 5. So greater than or equal to 9,000. And obviously all your stat guides right here also. Let's go ahead and open this back up. I think we're pretty much done with the video, but let's see if there's anything else to talk about. So Sam Ryder was also a 5 that finished 7th place. But really, those 2 golfers out of the 13, the only guys that finished, you know, or that were a last year 5. Gary Woodland, 83. Very difficult to put him in lineups if you're including these 2 guys or even these 3 guys. So I don't... Yeah, I'd again stay away from last year 5s. The sweet spot percentage looked pretty good. I have 0 guys up here that show me 0, and of the guys that were 2 to 6, like a lot of it goes by price. So I'm not too concerned. 26 and 26 were obviously my highest. So I guess if I were to go and look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 out of 20 golfers didn't make the cut. So that's pretty good. And I'm going to continue using that. I really enjoy using that as my kind of, not really a predictor, but just my, what kind of word am I looking for? Variety, basically, or just to find my good ownership. Of course, Justin Rose, also a guy that had 26, who missed the cut. So that's not great. Not good with Brooks Koepka. But for the rest of them, very good. You know, Morikawa, 20 lineups out of 100. Like you're going to do well. It's all about just combining the right golfers. That's about it. And hopefully I'll figure that out. Hopefully one of these times you'll see me win big. And we'll try. But I'm going to leave the video at that. We're 42 minutes long. It's not terrible. Went through some really good stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in a preview video for the Memorial Tournament. All right. See you later.